Hey, I am Sister Kate. I'm a tour guide at Bethabara. I've been with the park for about 3 years now. Welcome to Hands on History Day. This is a question and answer section about the flax processing demo that was just aired. So if you have any questions, send them through and we'll get you some answers. While we're waiting to get some questions in, my sister actually just sent me a question and asked. I said in the video it took or the Moravian families were making about 10 yards worth of fabric from their linen every year. And she asked me how much flax they would have to grow to get that much. It kind of varies from year to year depending on the yield of the crop, but you're looking at a couple acres worth of flax to get enough fiber out of the plants to make 10 yards of fabric. So quite a bit of work. And of that, you're spending maybe about somewhere between like 10 and 12,000 yards of thread to be able to weave into the fabric for a good medium weight linen fabric. So it's quite a bit of work. So I've got another question. It's why use linen instead of cotton for making fabric? So in colonial times, we didn't have all of the strains of cotton that have been modified through selective breeding of the cotton plants that we do today. Today, cotton grows in a wider variety of soils and climates. So at the time, cotton really didn't grow as well this far inland and this far north in North Carolina. Cotton was more of a southern and coastal crop at the time. So you could buy cotton. It was widely available. Even in the backcountry, the trade existed. Most of the cotton bought at that time was being shipped over from India, though block printed cotton was very popular. But for families living in the backcountry and for the Moravians who had settled back here, they needed to be able to grow and process their own fabrics that they needed, and linen was the way they could do that. The plants were hardy, they would grow in our soil and our climate, and it was something they could process on their own. Cotton has little tiny seeds inside. We talk about Whitney inventing the cotton gin. He actually made a more industrious cotton gin that was widely available. So until his invention, it was much harder to get the seeds out. It took longer to process. So linen was something that was easier for families and for the Moravian community to be able to process on their own. And that way they could make their own fabric from start to finish. I've got another question. It's how much thread was needed to make linen fabric? I touched on this just a little bit a second ago, but for the Moravians, they were making, and a typical family would be making probably around 10 yards of linen from what they had grown. To spin up enough thread to make that much linen fabric, you're looking for a heavy or medium weight linen fabric, you're looking at about 10 to 12,000 yards of thread being spun. For lots of families and for the Moravian community, spinning fell to women. It was considered women's work. But in the Moravian records, we also have record of older single men or widowed men also helping with spinning. Spinning is an activity that could be done inside, especially in the winter months. And it gave a chance for them to get some work done that wasn't outside and heavy lifting. So for older gentlemen who maybe were a little bit frailer or who didn't have the eyesight or whatever it was, they needed to be out doing maybe heavier work. Spinning was an option for them as well, especially in the Moravian communities. There's some notes in the Bethabara diaries and other Moravian diaries that note there were times when the need for linen cloth was so great that they actually had single sisters spinning 24 hours a day. So they would take shifts, and there would be some women up spinning overnight. It was also quite common for them to sing while they spun. So I can imagine that got a little bit with trying to sleep, and then having a couple of sisters downstairs and spinning and singing at the same time might not have been the best of situations. But they did get a lot of fabric made. I've got one more question here that says, who was responsible for processing flax into linen? And so it kind of varies. In the Moravian community, everybody would have been helping with the field work of growing the flax. Women were particularly important in field work. They weren't left out. A lot of people picture farming in that era as a men's activity, and it really wasn't. Everybody in the community was involved in it. The flax had to be planted, it has to be weeded, it has to be harvested, and so that would have been shared work. And the harvesting would have happened in the spring. The retting process, where they let it get wet and start to kind of break down the parts of the plant, that would have taken place not long after it was pulled up out of the ground and harvested. But then after it's been dried out after that, it lasts indefinitely. And so the scutching process and the heckling process was typically a fall event. So around this time of year now, when it's starting to get a little bit cooler. And so that process was also a kind of a community process. There's so many steps to that, with the breaking it and the scutching it and the hackling it and then the twisting it up and preparing it to wait to be spun. And so the more people you had involved, the quicker you could get it processed. So take a few days in the fall and get it processed. For families who were doing this on their own, not like the Moravians in their community, families would have been sharing all of this work as well. They would take maybe a week or so in the beginning of the fall to get everything processed. After the flax is ready to be spun, you can twist it up into little bundles. You wanted to hang it up from the roof, like rafters in your house or in your barn. Mice really like to pull it apart and make nest out of it, and the birds will steal it too if they can get a hold of it. And so to hang it from your rafters, it would keep the critters out. And then spinning was typically a winter activity that did typically fall to the women and children. Children could help, especially with wool, but with linen also, preparing the fibers to get ready to be spun. And then the women would take their time during those cold winter days to spin. And it was a day-long activity. Some spinning wheels at the time were actually made to be carried on horseback, so that if you went to visit friends, you could take your spinning with you. And so that was kind of, could be a social activity, but an important winter activity. And then after you had all of your thread spun and ready to go, then you would take it to the weaver. It kind of depended on what the weaver's schedule was, but it wouldn't take them a terribly long time to get it woven and then returned to you, so you have your fabric. Got another question. How much, no, I'm sorry. Was the linen dyed with colors? Yes. So at the time, linen did not take colored dye as well as like wool did, but linen takes indigo dye very well. Indigo is the color of blue jeans. We use indigo dyed blue jeans today. And so they would dye with indigo. There's also mention of red dyed linen, probably with madder maybe. Striped linen fabric was quite popular, so either blue striped or red striped, and then checked fabric. I don't know if you noticed in the video, the apron I'm wearing is blue checked. That was a quite popular color at the time as well. Can we see this process being done during a tour at Bethabara? So not during a typical tour when we are open to the public for a scheduled tour right now. We do usually have some sort of linen or other textile processing happening on our big events. So maybe not this year, but future years when we have Apple Festival, Celtic Festival, Homeschool Day, Hands on History Day, lots of those we do have. If it's not this actual process that you just saw, it will be something involving the linen processing process that you can come see and talk about. We've had in the past, we did a dyeing day where we did some indigo dyeing with, it was cotton t-shirts, but we still talked about the linen. We've done days where we have the breaking and processing like this, and we've had spinning as well. So right now we're open for people to come in and view the panels and exhibits in the visitor center. During the week, we're open Wednesday to Friday, 12 o'clock in the afternoon till 4. And then weekends, it's 10:30 to 4:30. And then if you would like to come and have a tour of the historic Gemein House, tours are available by pre-schedule. We ask that you call 5 days out at least to schedule your tour, and you can make those calls to 336-397-7587, and that'll give you a chance to sign up to get a tour. Thank you all for tuning in to watch this demo and for your questions. Tune back in at 2 p.m. Brother Keith will be on demonstrating some blacksmith work, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day.